want to ask you, I guess, a broader question about your vision for how tech can be used in other ways for good, without you having to disclose any secrets about your upcoming projects.
I mean, it's about everybody, right? It's about everybody, not just about the people building the tech, but us as consumers and how we choose to use it. Because I think the people, the huge companies, of which there are only a few key players, are building things which don't really look after us as humans. But if we continue to just always buy the products and always use the products, and if we don't push back and we don't question that, we just accept that and we just enable them to continue building technology that is not aligned with the interests of humanity. So I think as consumers, we all have a responsibility to expect more from technology, and I think the people who are building things should be just building things that are better for us as humans. And I think some of it is possibly an education thing, particularly with children. I think we're only just beginning to understand the implications of technology use on children, and it's not looking good, shock horror. But I think some of that comes from an ignorance of the technology we're using and what it does to us, or how it's swaying us, or swaying our voting habits, or our purchase habits as consumers, or even I would hate to be a teenager in the world today, being on Facebook and Instagram and having to always see everybody's glossy lives and these best versions of themselves they're presenting. I don't know how that's going to manifest itself when those people are adults. So yeah, I think technology just needs to do better, and I think as people we need to ask for better.
It's ironic, isn't it, that Steve Jobs, who said something like, I never use focus groups, because if you get focus groups, they'll tell you that they want the product that's already out there, they want it smaller and faster. They don't make the quantum leap to the new product, and that's sort of balancing that with what you're saying, which is, I'm hearing really that there's some soul missing. Is that? I mean, would you agree with that? Is that a way to put it?
Sounds like responsibility to me, though.
I think it's just a lack of humanness, which I guess could be put as lack of soul. I think again, people are comfortable with what they know, and I think it was Henry Ford that said if he'd asked people what they'd wanted, they would have asked for faster horses. Mm-hmm. So people tend to just prefer, the easiest way to introduce a new thing to somebody is just a variation on what they know. And like you said, going from one thing to another is like this huge quantum leap. And I think change in general, they reckon it takes a generation, don't they, for real change to make a difference and to stick. I forgot what the question was.
Well, one of the examples is that step from string to sellotape. 3M's got a sort of write-up on this idea that they had, which was this sticky tape, and nobody wanted it because everyone knew that using string was the way to do things, so making their parcels up. So taking things forward, I think the point here is about looking to create something that has soul or has that humanity, as opposed to this is going to make us a bunch of money.
I mean, it's a hard sell, trying to get people to change their behaviour or change their expectations. And I think for us, the way we found is best to do it is to help people experience it. So like the product, like Pillow Talk itself, when you explain it, it sounds really wacky, and I know it sounds really wacky, but then when I get it out and I show it to you and you experience the sound and the feeling of a heartbeat, or if somebody loves heartbeat, you're like, I see how that makes sense. I would see how I would want that if my child was in hospital, or I'm away from my husband or my wife when they're gone. And so for us, a key part in the journey was trying to share that experience and to open people's minds to the possible, just by giving them even a little snippet of what that future might look like, or how things could be different. And that's how we sort of started to steer people along a potentially different trajectory.
It's ironic in a way, because at an energetic level, you'd say that if you're in love with someone, you are connected wherever they are, and what you're doing is providing a technological proof, in a sense, and helping people feel that connection, where actually some people would say that that's something that we've lost, is that ability to know that we're connected and feel that connection. And yet you've got people on opposite sides of the world, and you think of something at the same time. You know, so that connection is there. It's like you're highlighting it at a time when so few people have that sensitivity to know that they're connected anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of the product was to try and connect people in a more passive way. So, like at the minute, you know, we have all these ways to connect with people. We can video call them, we can message them at any point, we can interrupt them, or we can ask them to schedule time into their day to sit down on a video call and talk to us. But that is so different to actually being with somebody and having that connection. Like if you live with somebody and you come home, you both sit in the same room at night and enjoy each other's, like spend time in each other's presence. You don't necessarily talk to each other or engage with each other. Maybe two people do two different things, but you're still spending that time together. And technology doesn't let you just sit in the same room as somebody else, which was what we set out to do, because I think technology should serve us and can be a solution, but it should sit in the background, and it should make our lives easier, and it should facilitate things, but it shouldn't distract us or interrupt us.
Yeah, it's making me think of another quote, and I don't remember who said it, but that we're feeling beings who think, not thinking beings who feel. And I think we have become a bit desensitized, and we have lost the value of feeling. And when you were talking about providing a way for your customers to experience the product, very often we don't know how we feel about something until we experience it, because how would we know? We can think of like what, you know, our reaction to seeing what a product is on your website, but that's going to be based on our judgments and perceptions and past experiences and things. But then when we actually experience it, it's a completely different thing, because we're really feeling it in ourselves, and that's where you create change and connection, I suppose.
We're human beings, not human doings.
Yeah, another great one. Yeah, so it's the feeling and the being.
Yeah.
As opposed to the thinking and doing.
Well, that's what we're meant to do as human beings. We're meant to experience the world. Like, I think that's why we've lost a bit of humanness with technologies, because we're fundamentally tactile beings. We're meant to pick things up and feel them and experience them by their shape and their texture and other people and hugging them and now we use screens a lot, and everything's become very flat, and we've sort of lost that bit. And so much of that tactility and the sort of 3D nature of those things is what we've lost, which is what's making us slightly less human, I think.
And less creative, I think, as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes use Play-Doh in workshops, and it's amazing. Just giving an adult a lump of Play-Doh is mind-blowing for them, because they forget that they ever do anything creative or tactile.
It's because we never get bored anymore, because we can't. Because I think boredom fosters creativity, because when you're, like 10 years ago, if you were at home and you had nothing to do, or you had an hour to spare, you would read a book or do something or fix something or make something or cook something, whereas now you probably sit and scroll through Instagram until you have to leave.
Or you would just do nothing, which is the being, and we don't.
Yeah,
that's I think also why we don't have good quality being anymore, because we're always distracted. And then a lot of people, I think, are sort of somewhat now have a fear of being alone and doing nothing and not being distracted.
And noise is another thing. You the number of people I talk to, and they say, yeah, well, I've got the TV on in the background, or I've got the radio on, and they're not listening to it, they're not watching it, they need the noise. They get a sense of security out of just the noise. And it's really interesting, because that's when you're in silence. What does that do? Where does it take you?
Inside yourself.
That's the point. And that's what people are terrified of. And so, well, again, it's something that we're I think we see as being really important. Is creating spaces where people can get in touch with themselves.
I was reading a paper the other day that was talking about how we process information and how you do something, or you do a task, and it's when you go away afterwards and you're just walking somewhere or having a shower or just doing some other mundane task, that's when all the processing happens, and when your brain does all the thinking and decides what the output is and all those things. And how today that we're having, like, technology is having a really negative impact on that, because we don't give ourselves that space to process those things, because we never have that downtime or that empty time where our bodies aren't really doing anything else, and we can do that because in that downtime we now look on our phones or watch Netflix, or we're consuming something which is on a high level just distracting our brains enough to stop us dealing with all those things we need to deal with.
Which is why nature's so important. Why you advocate it so much. Just going out and being quiet, being in an environment where actually you're in touch with something that is so grounded and fundamental.
Yeah, because I suppose your product is very much about connecting people to other people, but are there ways that you can see that we could use technology to, like, maybe connect with ourselves more or connect with nature more? I mean, obviously we can just go out and be in nature, but it's kind of that all of this fear about being and silence is maybe because we don't know how to look inward and we don't know how to connect.
I mean, I think a lot of people have tried, right, and technology has tried, particularly with the wearables movement. There was a lot of, all the quantified self and the tracking, and I think there was definitely a period of time where we thought that being, knowing better about our sleep or how many steps we've done or all these things could help us. And I think on some level they probably do, but at the same time it's maybe another distraction or another thing to think about that we don't need. And I think there's possibly a way that technology could be used to help us filter what's important to us, even in terms of notifications or what's connected in our homes, or I think there's possibility for exploration in that place in terms of how can we choose what we want to know about and what we don't, and what interrupts us and what doesn't, and what we do track about ourselves and we don't.
I'd like to take you a little bit out of that for a minute, because when you went to China, I don't know how well travelled you were.
Reasonably well travelled. I've been quite lucky along the way.
Was this the first place you'd actually had to do business with outside the UK?
No.
Okay. So, because for me, it's like I think of China and I think it couldn't be more different.
China has been the place that has had the biggest challenges in terms of language and cultural differences, and what I was trying to, like, the complexity of what I was trying to do, and even the amount of money I was spending on doing that thing, and if it had gone wrong, what that would have cost.
So tell the story about the cable and the quality of the cable.
The Cablegate.
Cablegate.
So when you So when I designed the product, obviously a lot of it was, as I've said before, I cared a lot about the experience and what the product was like to use. And one of the things I cared a lot about was sort of the finish of everything, the finish of the plastic, the tactility of it all. And one of the things I spent a long time doing was choosing the perfect cable. And I wanted it to have just the right wiggliness and the right texture, and I just wanted the end. I looked at a lot of cables. And when you make a product, you do what's called a pre-production run, which is where you make sort of 100, 200 of the thing, just to basically test the assembly line, make sure the process works, that everything fits together right, that there are no gaps in the process. And when that's done and all the bits are picked, you sign everything off to say, this is it, the process is fine, all the bits are fine, make me thousands, just like that. So that happened, and I think I'd come home again, and then I went back to China, and I was in China, and we'd been doing all this manufacturing, and we were getting quite close to the end, and we were getting very close to Christmas, and we were in a factory one day, and I just looked around, and there's this massive pile of cables, like 5,000 or 10,000 cables, and I picked one up, and I said, what's this? And they said, that's your cable. And I was like, this is not my cable, this is not the cable. And they're like, oh, it's fine, it's just a cable. And I was like, oh, it's not just a cable. And by that point, I'd been in China for weeks on my own. I'd been making hundreds of decisions every single day on my own. And yeah, the cable became this real point of contention because I knew it was not right. And everybody else just wanted to get the thing finished, put them on the box, get them out before Christmas. And they were like, it's fine, just go with it. And that was one of the most testing points along the journey, because I was stuck in another country where nobody else spoke my language, and I was like, am I right here, or am I just so entrenched in this thing that I can't see reasoned logic and that maybe the cable is fine? In the end, I just decided the cable was not fine, and we drove all over China, not all over China. We found another cable, and it was fine in the end, but that was a bad day.
Tell me a little bit about what it was that made you stick to your guns. Where did that feeling come from? Because this was you trusting yourself when everything was saying, just go with it. Go with this. Don't go into this difficult place.
So I'm a huge believer in gut instinct. And it's always, when people ask me what my best advice is for anything ever, it's always to trust your gut instinct. And that is a lesson I learned quite early on. I took an investment deal, which, again, everything was saying, do it. And the only thing that didn't say do it was my gut instinct. And at the time, I was like 22, 23, and I let somebody who I believed was smarter than me and more experienced than me talk me into making a decision I just didn't really want to make, because I thought they knew better. And yeah, so I took a deal that I didn't feel good about, and it turned out to be a huge disaster. So I learned the very difficult and expensive way not to ignore your gut instinct. And at the time, the person said to me, like, you can't run a business on gut instinct. And I look back now and I'm like, he was so wrong. Like, I think you absolutely can run a business on gut instinct, and I think you should. And you should base all of your business and personal decisions on your gut instinct.
So how do you access it? What for some people, I suspect for a lot of people, gut instinct means something to them, but what does it mean? How do you feel it? What's the process for you?
Oh, it's just there, isn't it? Everyone's like, use this cable, and there's a little bit of me that's going, don't use the cable.
Where's that? What is that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it is a tricky one, because I was going to say you can just tell because it's uncomfortable, but then there are a lot of times when it's good to be uncomfortable, and if you didn't persevere through uncomfortableness, you would never grow. I don't really have the answer.
Is it your gut?
I think sometimes it can literally be your gut. Like, there have been, I think this is something I've sort of only come around to accepting recently, but I think a lot of the things we carry inside us, emotionally or mentally, can manifest themselves as physical symptoms. So I think a lot of people, if they are having problems with a part of their body, that it actually can be something a lot bigger.
And something my teacher always says is the body never lies.
Yeah.
We just don't listen to it.
Yeah.
And again, something that we're trying to do is to help people get into a place where, in the silence, in that peace, you can actually begin to receive, hear what the body is saying to you. Yeah, that's just so fundamental.
I think we're nearing the end of our time. So should we bring it back to leadership? And I suppose if you continue to grow and develop new ideas and new offers of how technology can create further human connection, and you come round to the idea of really being a leader, where do you see that going, and what have you learned on the way, and how will that shape how you go forward?
I think I'm just always trying to be the change I want to see in the world, and I think I will probably always just continue to try and do that in whatever form it takes, and via the medium of whatever opportunities present themselves or that I create along the way. I still don't really know what that's going to look like, but I do hope that I can continue to be, I don't know, I just always want to be championing what I care about, even if everybody else thinks I'm crazy. And I know with Pillow Talk it was a bit of a not a slog, it wasn't a bad thing, but in terms of, like, even at the time people thought I was crazy, and then there was like a long period in the middle where everybody thought I was still crazy. But now people are kind of like, oh well, actually that made sense, and actually you were kind of ahead of the curve there in terms of that. So I hope I can continue to do things like that, and that I guess maybe I'm a leader in some ways. So I guess, I mean, yeah, if I am a leader, then I hope to continue to lead.